Hi, Court.
And hi, Be Critics fam. Welcome to another episode of the Be Critics podcast.
We are still in our Harry Potter era, have no fear, and we're continuing the discussion with the third in the franchise.
And not only are we in our Harry Potter era, but we're also in our growth era. So you can help us by helping others find the podcast. So share the podcast with a friend, leave us a rating or review on your favorite streaming platform, and don't forget to follow and subscribe to stay up to date on all the latest episodes.
You can also find us on social media. We post some pretty fun things. We're on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at bcriticspodcast. Be sure to subscribe, hit that subscribe button, and follow our Instagram for all the best movie content.
All right, Liz, I think that's enough of the boring stuff. It's time to get into the episode.
All right, so first we're going to check in on the Be Critics Hogwarts House Tournament.
Yeah, the most subjective tournament in the land.
Well, it's only fitting.
Yes.
So I'll just run through real quick the standings. And so far, all we're adding into these are the points from the actual episodes. So we have not added in any points from comments or anything like that.
Okay.
So in fourth place is Ravenclaw with 50 points. Tied for second place is Gryffindor and Slytherin with 70 points. And then in first place is Hufflepuff with 85 points. Yay.
I'm taking 5 points from Hufflepuff just for sheer subjectivity of the fact that they're ahead. Goodbye.
That's rude. That's rude. Okay. All right. As a reminder, you can earn points for your house by commenting on this episode on YouTube and telling us what house you're in. You can comment on each of our Harry Potter episodes exactly one time. We'll know if you cheat, and you will lose points for your house that way. We're not going to tell you how many you're going to lose, but it's going to be substantial, so just don't do it.
Nope, don't cheat. We will know. Liz and I are magical.
We don't like cheaters.
We will take points away from your team, from your house. Don't, especially if you're a Gryffindor. Don't you even try to post things.
Courtney will come for you.
I will. We here in House Gryffindor, we follow the letter of the law, unless it's necessary to, get past that 3-headed dog and save the stone. So, but that's not the movie that we're talking about today. The movie that we are discussing today is the third installment of the Harry Potter series, The Prisoner of Azkaban.
Ooh, extra spooky.
Yeah, my favorite of the Harry Potter movies, I think.
I always forget that. That one's your favorite.
Yeah, it's controversial. I think this is a lot of people's favorite movie, and I also think it's a lot of people's least favorite of the series. So we're curious to hear what you have to say, but just know ahead of time that it's one of my favorites, so I'll be speaking very highly of it throughout.
Yeah, don't be mean, okay? This is a safe space. You're allowed to not like it, but don't be mean to us if we do. Mm-hmm. Okay, so Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. In this one, Harry is going crazy living with the Dursleys. So crazy that he blows his aunt up like a balloon and runs away. The night bus rescues him and brings him to the Leaky Cauldron, where he's reunited with his pals Ron and Hermione. Like every year, they board the Hogwarts Express and start the journey to their beloved school. Except this time, the train is stopped, and Harry has his first run-in with the Dementors. You see, a very dangerous prisoner has escaped from Azkaban, which has never happened before, by the way, and he may be after Harry Potter. Many abnormal things begin happening at Hogwarts. The Dementors, who are guarding the grounds, have taken a distinct interest in Harry. Hermione seems to be appearing and disappearing every time Ron turns around. And there are a few people and furry creatures that are not what they seem. To solve all the injustices and mysteries around the castle, Harry and Hermione must travel back in time without being spotted. Will they be able to save more than one innocent life tonight? Or will Harry and Hermione miss their chance to make things right?
Dun, dun, dun.
Gotta watch the movie to find out.
Oh, come on. If you're here, you know exactly what happens.
Yeah, I feel like there's very few people left in the world that haven't seen the Harry Potter movies, or at least like know the main
Mm-hmm.
plots of them all, you know?
Yeah, I agree. So this movie came out in 2004 and it's 2 hours and 21-minute runtime, so a bit shorter than the last two.
Mm-hmm.
It had about the same budget, 130 million, and its box office was a bit lower, just shy of 800 million dollars.
That's still
And
like quite a feat.
yeah, very successful.
That's a lot of money.
I know. So this movie is the first in the series to get a new director. No more Chris
Mhm.
Columbus.
I feel like the director position, oh, maybe this might be a spoiler for the future, but I feel like the director position is kind of like the Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher,
Yeah.
where we just
Yeah, at
like
this point
constantly
we get
changes after this.
new directors. So it was kind of a big deal that Chris Columbus like didn't want to keep directing. So he stepped down
Mhm.
because it was like consuming his life because they would film these movies for like 9-10 months at a time. And he became like he remained on as a producer, giving him like a little bit better
Mhm.
work-life balance there. And so the producers started like reaching out to a bunch of different directors, and there were a lot of people considered for this role.
Mhm.
So one that I think is interesting is Guillermo del Toro,
Yeah.
and he envisioned it being like kind of dark. And so like he thought the first two were like too bright and happy. Um and then Mark Forster, he turned down the film also because he had to make Finding Neverland, which that was stupid.
Flop. I've never heard of
And
that
then
before.
yeah. Um M. Night Shyamalan was considered but turned it
That would have been
down.
weird. That would have been weird.
Yeah, it would have been weird. And then it ended up that there was like a 3-name shortlist for Columbus's replacement. And one of those people was actually Kenneth Branagh, who played Gilderoy Lockhart in the second movie.
Stop.
Can you
How did
imagine?
he get on that list?
I don't know. I saw that, I was shook. But we ended up with Alfonso Cuarón,
Mhm.
which was really interesting because he almost didn't take the role because he had never read the books and he didn't like appreciate the Harry Potter series. And what's interesting is Guillermo del Toro actually berated him, saying he was arrogant and told him to go read the books. And so after he read the series, he changed his mind and signed on to direct the films.
He's like, "You
And
stupid oaf."
yeah, and personally, I'm really, really glad that he did, because I think Alfonso Cuarón brought a really interesting touch to the third
Mhm.
installment of the series.
For sure. Definitely feels different. Like, it's
Yeah,
very
big
obviously
shift.
like a continuation, but it definitely feels different. Like a little bit
Yeah,
more grown up.
and it has to, right? Because stuff is
Mhm.
getting more serious for sure. Um, then we have our last John Williams score of the film.
So sad. You know what
I
else?
know.
Okay, while we're talking about lasts, this was the last Harry Potter film to be released on VHS.
Really?
Isn't that wild?
That is wild.
2005.
To it was Yeah, because it would have been after it came out in theaters.
Mhm.
Wow. I can still remember going to, like, the Premiere Video and, like, Blockbuster in that time frame
Mhm.
and picking up videos. Weird. It's kinda
I
crazy,
know.
like, how that feels like I mean, I guess that was 20 years ago, but it doesn't feel like it was, like, that long ago that we were, like, out here buying VHSs, and now you can't even find a DVD.
I know. Everywhere's stopping selling them, which is really it's like making me scared because I'm like I want all my movies on DVD.
I know.
So um my in-laws, they have an extensive DVD collection, and they've bought these giant things, disc homes. They have like I don't even know, at least 4 of them. We have 2 of them at
Okay.
our house. I'll have to do like a tour on TikTok of the DVD
Yeah.
thingies.
It's like
But I'm just like,
vintage.
man, like what if we didn't have all these? There's been some movies that we've watched for Halloween that like aren't on streaming. Like if I
Oh,
didn't have the
yeah.
DVDs, how am I gonna watch them? It's
Example,
crazy.
28 Days Later. Couldn't find that
Yes.
anywhere. Tried to watch it with my dad. Nowhere to be found. Y
Which is
You have
so
to
wild because that's a Cillian Murphy movie.
Yeah, it's a huge
You'd think it'd be
movie.
everywhere
I
because
know.
he's so hot right now.
Well, somebody has the rights to it, and they're squashing it, I guess. I don't know who it
Anywho, that was a
is.
sidetrack.
Yeah, so this movie, we get some cool new cast members, and we're gonna talk about
Mhm.
them. So we get Gary Oldman, Emma Thompson, David Thewlis, and we get a new Dumbledore in this movie.
It's bittersweet.
I hate Michael Gambon as Dumbledore. I literally he is the worst thing that could have happened to the Harry Potter series. I'm sorry, but he hasn't even read the books, and I think he's arrogant. Just
Oh.
like he needs to be called out, like Alfonso Cuarón. I'm I don't know.
Oh no.
I People are allowed to disagree with me, but horrible casting. Horrible casting.
I don't think he's terrible. I will say someone else that was considered for this role, Ian McKellen, who played
Mhm.
Gandalf, I think he would have been fantastic in this role. He's got like the
Agreed.
sweet old man vibe versus the like stern old man vibe that Gambon has. What's interesting about Ian McKellen, he turned it down. So
Yeah.
he was like originally considered for it. And he has 2 reasons that he turned it down. And this is like a direct quote from him. He said,
Okay.
"I had enough trouble living up to one legend. 2 would be too much to hope for." And
Aw.
then he also said that it felt inappropriate to be considered for the role because Harris had called McKellen a dreadful actor.
Oh my gosh. Richard Harris cursed these movies. Just like how the Defense
So,
Against the Dark Arts has a curse, the position has a curse at Hogwarts. Like Richard Harris was like, no one's gonna be as good as me. Will not allow it.
oh.
Christopher Lee also turned down the role,
Who's
which I
Christopher
feel like
Lee? I don't think I know who he is.
he is known as Dracula. And he
Mm.
plays Count Dooku in several of the Star Wars movies. He's also in The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings trilogy.
Mm.
I don't know who he is in Lord of the Rings. Let's look it up.
I wonder if he plays Gandalf the White
Christopher Lee.
or Sauron. No, what's the bad wizard's name?
He plays Saruman.
Yeah, Saruman.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's who he plays.
he's like
Yeah,
the evil wizard.
don't
There's
hate
like
me,
2
y'all.
old gray men, and they play the
Him and Ian
wizards.
McKellen, and they were both
Yeah.
considered to be Dumbledore. Turned
Ian
down.
McKellen would have been so good. Anyway,
I
I
know.
think Michael Gambon was fine. I think Dumbledore kind of takes a back seat in the movies,
Yeah, which he
and
shouldn't.
I don't know if it's because Michael Gambon because they replaced him and they were trying not to make it obvious or what, but that's
Mm-mm.
very sad.
No, it is sad because one of the coolest things about this series is the relationship between Dumbledore and Harry and how mysterious it is.
Mhm.
And like, I understand that Dumbledore does have to shift a little bit from the way that Richard Harris was playing him because, like, things get darker and more serious, and Dumbledore's got to, like, kind of be
Mhm.
stronger. I just really have never been able to get to jive with the way that Gambon portrayed him. Um, and it's not quite as bad in this movie, but this is the start of it. So,
Yeah, so that can be our poll question. Well, we'll throw it up there. Do
Oh,
you or
that's a
do
good
you not
idea.
like Michael Gambon as Dumbledore? We'll
That's a
see what
really good
everyone
poll question.
thinks.
I think some people do like him because they think he's like stronger feeling as Dumbledore.
He feels
But
more youthful than Richard Harris, which I don't
well,
know if that's necessarily a positive, but that is
yeah,
how it feels.
Dumbledore's supposed to be like over 100 years old, so I don't think he's supposed to be looking youthful.
Isn't McGonagall also supposed to be like really freaking old?
Yeah, they're supposed to be really old. Like wizards live longer than normal humans live. So,
Oh my god.
all right. Well, let's get into it. So, this movie is a totally different feel from the first two movies. And we talked a lot about how that has to do with, the fact that we have a new director here. We have Alfonso Cuarón. But I think that was really necessary because the story also takes a turn. We have more emotions. We've got 13-year-olds dealing with becoming adolescents. And this movie just has like a darker feel and a more dramatic story in general.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So let's start by talking about the acting.
Which is like leagues better. Like every
Leagues.
movie, I feel like they get better and better, which makes sense. They're going from being like literal children to young adults. So like
Mm-hmm.
that makes sense. But it's like night and day, especially Emma Watson. Like I think she just like is a shining star in this movie
Yeah.
specifically.
She she really shines. And I think also because this is the movie where like so in the last one um Harry and Ron kind of like ventured together at the end, and in this one we
Mhm.
get Harry and Hermione really really shining at the end. And I think it's
Mhm.
cool to see Emma Watson in that light. She gets to do some really cool stuff in this movie, like punching Tom Felton in the face.
Okay, I was watching like a behind the scenes like interview thing with them, and
Mm-hmm.
so in the book, I haven't read the books, but in the book, this is what they were saying. In the book, she slaps Malfoy. Hermione
Yeah.
slaps him. She doesn't punch him. And so when they were like going to do this scene, the first take they did, Tom Felton told her to slap him and didn't realize that she was actually going to do it and like slapped him. And so then she was like scared to do it. So that's why they had it be like a punch because they could easily edit it.
Yeah. Well, it was effective. I love that scene. And I love the way that Tom Felton like reacts too. He like falls over and like runs away.
He is so stinking cute. Like Malfoy is a little asshole, but like Tom Felton is adorable. Like I think he is so cute.
I think this movie is the peak cuteness of all of these characters. Like, to be honest, like I think
Mhm.
that they don't look like baby children, and they don't look
Mhm.
like
Adults.
to be honest, like Dan and Rupert are like not like crazy attractive in adulthood. So like this is like kind of where I feel like they all peak a little bit. Like every single
I don't know. Goblet of Fire, Harry's hair gets long and I kind of like it. But I'm also a fan of longer hair on men, so
Yeah, that's fair. So the kids are now 13.
mhm.
And they're working with some seriously good actors in this movie. And so that's one thing that we're going to talk a ton about. But I think that also helped elevate their acting is that they're working with more and more like
Mhm.
seriously skilled professionals.
They literally got like a front row seat to the best acting class they could have ever taken, and they got
Oh,
paid to
yeah.
do it.
Oh,
Like
yeah. They're so lucky. One other thing we get in this movie that goes along with like the 13-year-old like adolescence bit
mhm.
is just the interactions between like Ron, Harry, and Hermione is kind of like evolving.
Mhm.
And this is the first movie where we really get like Ron and Hermione bickering like a lot.
You can tell they like each other in this movie.
Mhm.
Like you
Yeah.
can the seed is like starting because they just like do little things. Like Ron notices when Hermione is there versus when she's not there. And like I don't know, it's just very cute. I I am 100% a Ron and Hermione stan, like, to the end, forever and
Yeah,
ever.
it's cute, and I think it's really cute and well done in this movie specifically. So
Mhm.
let's do our Ron temperature check. So
Yeah.
it's just us. So we're at the third movie,
Mhm.
and we already mentioned like Ron changes a little bit, like he's noticing Hermione, but he does
Mhm.
get kind of cut from like the last like 40 minutes of the hour really of the movie. Well, no, not
Mhm.
hour, like 40 minutes. Um, how do you feel about Ron in this movie, Elizabeth?
Okay, so before I say this, I just wanna preface with I'm pretty sure Ron is my favorite character in the whole series.
Fair.
So, I may be a little bit lenient on him, but I'm gonna say he's on, like, medium heat in this movie. He
Okay.
has some good, like, foreshadowing with the with Hermione showing up and not showing up kinda thing. But then also he is like constantly defending Scabbers against Cruikshanks. And I'm like, listen, Scabbers is a rat and Cruikshanks is a cute little kitty. And we know that we are all team kitty cat here. So that's
Yes.
not my fave. And then he also is like a little bit of a weenie and he's like making fun of Hermione in a couple scenes, which is like not my fave. So he's getting a medium heat.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think this is where like book readers and movie lovers, like people who just like love the canon of Harry Potter, like
Mhm.
this is when Ron starts to become like a little shit because he gets like mean to Hermione and people are like,
He like
why does
was
she
he
end up
like
with
that in the
him?
books? Or did they change that for the
Worse.
movies? Oh.
He's way worse in the books. They like really tone it down in the movies. So, but I think Ron is entertaining in this movie. So I'm a
Mhm.
fan of him in this one.
Yeah. Yeah, he's cute.
Yeah.
I just have a soft spot in my heart for him. He's just adorable.
I think
Can't
that's
help
a very
it.
respectable favorite character to have, Elizabeth. Like Ron is a favorite character, one of the trio. Like he's super integral to the story. Pretty good.
Yeah, I like him.
Okay.
And I feel like he's kind of like an underdog, which
Yes,
makes me like him
100% an
more.
underdog because people never think that he's like capable of like doing really good magic. And then he shows that he is. It doesn't help too that in the first few films, they give a lot of his like best lines and moments to Hermione. So it seems like he's not super cool. And then
Mhm.
he actually knows more than like they let him let on in the movies.
Mm.
Okay. So let's talk about the cinematography in this movie because it is so different. So we've got Alfonso Cuarón as the director and Michael Sarisian as his director of photography. And all the movies are shot. They end up in a 35 millimeter format. So they keep that in this movie. However,
Mhm.
they used some different cameras in this one. So in the first two movies, especially the first one, because you had all these little kids like running around, they used like a million cameras to like get the angles. And
Mhm.
in this one, they wanted to make it more dramatic. So they actually shot with a mobile camera and wide angle lenses. So they use the Aircam ST about like 90% of the shooting of the movies of this movie. And what that enabled is to get like close ups, also have a lot going on in the background, and it enabled the shots to be like wide and really dramatic for this movie.
So when you
Um,
say like mobile camera, is that just like handheld or like what's
yeah, I
that
don't know.
mean?
I just think it's like more
Is it like on
mobile,
wheels?
girl. IDK. That's just what this
Asking the
article
wrong
said that I
person.
was reading about this. Let's see.
Uh,
I don't think they were handheld because I think you can tell like the handheld like doesn't look as steady. I just think they're
mhm.
more mobile,
More
smaller.
mobile than like
Yeah.
they don't just like set cameras up around and leave them there. That's
Yeah.
interesting.
And like also when you have a ton of cameras, it reduces the shot size that you can get. like you can't, where there's
'Cause
a
they'll be
camera,
in
right?
it.
You can't shoot. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so
That's the problem we have
because
trying to get angles for the podcast.
yeah, exactly. And so because the kids are better in this film, they can do less takes and use like these cameras that enable more dramatic shots, which you could definitely tell the shots were really different in this movie.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
one example of a great shot that I noticed is when Harry and Hermione are running from the werewolf Lupin,
Mhm.
and the camera like follows them into the Forbidden Forest, and then like follows them around the
Around the
trees
tree.
too, and you can see like all the stuff going on in the background too. Yeah,
Yeah, that is a really cool shot because you, like, as the viewer are, like, trying to peer around because you know it's over there. You've already seen it over there, and you're trying to, like, peek
yeah.
around, you're like, "Please tell me it's not coming, please tell me it's not coming." And of course it is. Um,
Yeah,
so you
but
actually asked me to, like, list out some shots that I thought were good too.
mhm,
So, the first one I have is when we're, like, already in spoiler territory, so, like, if you haven't seen this, which we already talked about it, but anywho, like, we're just going at it. So, when at the end, when they're time traveling and Harry and Hermione are watching the scene at the lake where Harry and Sirius are being attacked by the Dementors,
mhm.
you see, like, you're, like, watching Harry and Hermione watch the scene, and then when Harry goes to perform the Patronus, you're watching from Hermione's perspective, and it's just, like, a really like, neat way to show that, like, what's going on and, like, how Hermione was seeing it because you know she would have been, like, incredibly impressed with that whole situation, so getting to see it, like, front row was really cool.
Yeah, that is a really cool shot. And that's like a super dramatic realization in the movie. So the fact that you get that cool of a shot with it and you've kind of already seen it from a different angle, like that's
Mhm.
cool.
Yeah. They did a good job hiding Harry, like, when you see it the first time, because they kinda show, like, up close who's doing the Patronus, but they hide him really well
Yeah, you know how
behind
they
the
do a good
lights and
job
everything.
hiding that it's Harry, so they don't actually make it a stag, which is like really fucked up, but it's fine.
It should have been a
I have
stag running around the first time
yes.
you see it, but it's not you don't see the stag until the second time.
Yeah, it's okay.
But but if you haven't read the books, like, you don't know that. Like, I didn't know. Like, I was like, "Oh, yeah, it's Harry's dad." Like, makes total sense.
Yeah, yeah.
I wouldn't have known because of the stag that it was Harry, like, I never would have known.
Well, no, the stag is what makes you think that it's Harry's dad. Because which
Oh, yeah.
so so one thing we'll talk about more, but they never explain the Marauders' backstory in the movie.
Mm-mm.
And that's I think that's why people dislike this movie in particular. And it's something that I've just like come to accept about it. But at this point in the story, Harry is supposed to know that his dad is an anime guy who turns into a stag. So when he
Mhm.
sees the stag, he doesn't think it's a Patronus. He literally thinks it's his dad. And he thinks his
Mhm.
dad is the one conjuring the Patronus. Like he just like that is what makes him think it's his dad. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
yep.
Mm.
Ye-
I had 3 others.
Okay.
The second one is when Harry's flying on Buckbeak. I just thought that
Oh
it was,
yeah.
like, beautiful imagery. I'm pretty sure it's all, like, CGI, but, like, it just looked really pretty, like, the background of everything.
Mhm.
And then when Harry during the Quidditch match, which shout out Hufflepuff because we're represented. During the Quidditch match, when Harry's going after the snitch and he goes like straight up into the thundercloud and all the Dementors are around, like that was pretty cool. Like the way that they showed that and like you are kind of like moving with Harry and like discovering the Dementors at the same time as him, which I thought was really
Yeah,
neat.
totally agree. The Quidditch in this movie, like they upped the ante for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the last one I had, and this is not really like a shot, like a particular shot, um, but just like the way that they portray when they're going back in time and you see like them moving around the room and like other people moving around the room and like it was just an interesting way to do it.
Oh, I totally agree. I
It
have
wasn't
so
like a
much to say
time
about
warp
that.
situation. It like showed them like it showed everything that was going on that day.
Yeah, yeah. So they did a lot of really cool things to show the time aspect of the movie. So
Mhm.
one of the things that they did along with like how they kind of like showed time rewinding is they actually incorporated the score. Um, there was this ticking clock sound that was heard throughout the entire final act of the film. So like while they're back in time, you can hear like a
Mhm.
faint like ticking the whole time.
Yeah.
And then I also thought was cool is like some of the random shots that you get in this film. So like you get shots of the clock tower and they like go through the clock tower.
With the gears and
Um
everything.
yeah, and then
Mhm.
you get shots of the seasons changing around Hogwarts and
Mhm.
like the
And the
Whomping
Whomping Willow like
Willow.
shaking the snow off.
Yeah. Yeah, like I thought some of that stuff was really artsy and
It's like little
dramatic.
details that make a difference in the movie.
Yeah, but they kind of kept it with like that like whimsical like feel of Harry Potter. And I just think that's part of why I like this movie so much because it makes the like every movie passes a full year at Hogwarts. And I think when there's so much to talk about, that can be really hard to show in a movie. And I think that Alfonso Cuarón did a really good job of showing that passage of time in this movie without making it feel like wildly rushed, despite the fact that the whole last hour of the movie is like one 3 hour period in time. Like
Mhm.
in that first hour and a half of the movie, they're still able to effectively show an entire school year passing by.
Yeah. That is cool.
Yep. So the costuming in this movie is a little bit different. So in the first movie, we had like the very traditional robes and the hats and everything. And this one, they're a little bit more liberal with the uniforms. They look a
Mhm.
bit more modern. So we see like a bunch of like untucked shirts and the kids kind of like protesting on their uniforms.
Mhm. Yeah, so Quran actually told like Harry, Ron, and Hermione that they should wear their uniforms like however they felt comfortable. So it would really like show the like personality of their character. And
Mhm.
he also gave the same permission to like all the other characters. So you'll see a lot of them will have their tie loosened, or they're not wearing a tie at all, or their shirts untucked, or however they were comfortable wearing it, which definitely gives character. And I think too, for anyone who's ever gone to a school where you had to wear a uniform, like that's what kids do. Like
Mhm.
they change it up, especially when they start getting old enough to make their own decisions and like have their own ideas. They definitely do that.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it added an element of realism to the movie
Mhm.
and like I liked that they kept them in the uniforms too,
Yeah.
but allowed them to have that like freedom to kind of make them what they wanted to.
Mhm.
Um, they did incorporate though some more modern clothing. So the last sequence of the movie, the trio is just wearing like t-shirts, hoodies, jeans, like normal
Mhm.
people clothes. What like
Yeah.
kids would wear in the time. Hermione has like pretty low rise jeans and like this was 2004 for sure.
It looks like the early 2000s. It's like super cringy to know that we wore stuff like that and
Mhm.
thought it looked good.
Yeah, yeah, but apart from the low-rise jeans, I feel like everything else is pretty nondescript. Like, it kind
Mhm.
of can transcend time a little bit.
We also get the beginning of the color schemes for the main
Mm,
characters. So Hermione's color scheme is like blue and green and pink. And then
yeah.
Harry's is like like white and gray and black, and Ron is like neutral tones and browns. And you see that like through the rest of the series. They have them dressed that way. The most iconic one comes later. Well, it's actually in the next movie. But
Yeah.
Hermione's like pink dress that she wears to the Yule Ball.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of. That's so interesting. Yeah.
Mm.
Um yeah, and I think they did costuming of all the characters, not just the trio, like pretty well. Um
Mhm.
so we get some other characters in this one like Trelawney and Sirius, and they all have very like distinct looks about them,
Mhm.
and I think they
Yeah.
costume them very well.
I think Dumbledore's attire changes too.
Yeah.
Um like slightly, but he gets more like extravagant robes
Mhm.
and things like that.
Yeah, extravagant robes are fun. I like that.
When it's like, okay, maybe I don't hate him.
I don't I tried really hard. I said hate in the beginning, I know, but I want to make sure it's clear. It's the way that he portrays Dumbledore. I just
Yeah.
don't love it. Um we get more characters than ever in this movie that are entirely digital. So
Mhm.
last movie we got Dobby, but this movie we get a lot. So we got
Mhm.
the Dementors in this
They're
movie.
scary AF. Those things are creepy.
Mhm.
That's like
I
nightmare material.
seriously, I've been watching a lot of spooky movies recently, and those things are high up on my list of the spookiest creatures.
They're like downplayed a little bit, but they're pretty freaking scary.
Yeah, I think they do a really good job with them. I think they look
Mhm.
really realistic, and they look literally like they're sucking out your soul. And I believe it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm. We also get the werewolf in this movie, which looked a little strange.
Yeah, I don't know that I fully buy into their werewolf design. It kind of like takes you out of it a little bit.
Hmm.
One, because it doesn't look like a traditional werewolf, and I get that they were trying to like steer away from it looking traditional, but I was expecting it to have more of Lupin's features, and it really
Mm.
didn't. Like he could completely transformed. Like it stayed slender and maybe the hair was the same color, but like other than that, like his scars were gone and it was like it wasn't even Lupin anymore, which I guess it's kind of part of it, but like I wish it had had more of his features.
Yeah, that's an interesting comment. I've never thought that because I'm kind of glad that it doesn't look like Lupin because, like, to me, like, that's not Lupin. That's like
Yeah.
a werewolf. And then there's Lupin. And so, like, it's sad that he turns into that and that grayback bit him and like turned him into this being. Um,
Mhm.
but I do agree with you that it doesn't look like exactly like what I would have pictured it was to look like. However,
Mhm.
I can't really think of like exactly how it was described in the book. So I guess
You
who
might
am
have
I
had
to
some
say? Maybe
liberties. I don't know.
maybe it's perfect. We also get a flying hippogriff in this movie,
Love Buckbeak.
and
He's
we
such a
spent a lot of time
cutie.
with Buckbeak. Yeah,
Yeah.
very proud. The whole like we're not going to talk about it a ton, but like the whole drama with Malfoy and him like taunting Buckbeak, and then like he's like, "My arm." What does he say? He's like, "It's killed me," or it's I don't remember what he yells when
I
he
think he said
falls
something about it
over.
being broken or
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know. He's literally just been scratched.
uh, yeah,
That
he's
that whole situation really makes you like despise the Malfoys
mhm.
because like any normal parent would be like, this is awful. I'm like horrified that this happened to my child, but like obviously it was his fault. Like Draco. Like obviously it was his fault. I don't
Yeah.
know. I'm not a parent. I don't know how parents think, but I would
Oh,
think that
no.
they'd be like more reasonable than that.
Lucius is literally the worst thing ever. However, I think Tom Felton in this movie is so funny. Like the jokes that they gave him to deliver in this movie are golden. I don't know if you felt the same way, but like the one where they're making fun of Harry for like fainting and he's like, look, a dementor. Oh, and then like every I don't know. I like was laugh out loud funny to me.
Mm-mm.
This is one of the last ones where it gets to still be funny. It is
Yeah.
not like super
Aw.
dark yet.
Yeah. He's not like a complete and total bully.
Mm-hmm. And then we also get another character that's entirely digital is the dog, the giant dog that is Sirius. And Harry sees a ton throughout the movie.
That thing is scary.
Mm-hmm.
Why does Sirius have such a scary anime guy? Like, he's not a scary person. Like, I don't get that.
I think they just did it for like dramatic effect in the movie, to be
Mm.
honest.
Because
He's just
he
supposed to be like
like
a big dog.
you see him at the beginning of the movie, and
Mm-hmm.
he's just like coming up on Harry Potter, and obviously just like wants to talk to him. But if you come growling out of the woods, no one's gonna want to talk to you.
Yeah, that's one thing that they honestly just probably don't have time to put into the movies. But in the book, there's like a lot of time where like, and it's in like probably in later movies, but where Sirius is a dog and he interacts with people and he's like really sweet. Like he like nudges them and like acts like a dog basically. Hmm. But you obviously don't get that in this movie. But I think he does make a line where he's like, actually, people say I have a really sweet disposition as a dog or something like that. Maybe it's
Weren't
in a later movie.
wasn't Cruikshanks and Sirius the dog, weren't they like friends in the book?
Yes, they did remove that. So Crookshanks like is always like off with Sirius and they're like BFFs and then like comes back and like that is and that's why Crookshanks is always like trying to kill Scabbers because
Scabbers.
Crookshanks like knows. Wow, cats are the best. I love that you know that. How do you know that?
Because I did a lot of research.
Yeah, wow. I totally forgot about that. Yeah. And I'm pretty sure there's a scene where in the book where like somebody, probably Harry, like sees Crookshanks like out with a black dog and he's like, that's weird as hell.
Hmm,
Like,
what is
yeah,
that?
that's for sure a thing. So this movie also gets some cool new sets. There's a lot of sets that have a ton of digital elements. So one is the night bus early
Hmm.
on in the movie. And we get Stan Shunpike on the night bus, and then Harry has his like long crazy ride back to Diagon Alley.
Yeah. So parts of the bus were digitized, but a lot of it is practical.
Cool.
So I don't know if you saw anything about how they filmed like the bus driving really fast,
Uh-uh.
but pretty much what they did is they had the bus driving at a normal speed and everything else was going really slow. Like they had the other cars driving really slow. Plus, they were pulling the film through really fast, which gives it that effect that it's like zipping around everywhere,
Yeah.
which is super neat and like so intelligent. Like who thought of that? I
That
wouldn't have. I
is
would have been like just throw it in there digitally. It'll be fine.
probably this
But it looks so
guy,
good.
Michael Sarisian and Alfonso Cuarón. It's them.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Geniuses.
That's really cool. I love the way that the bus looks and it's cool watching this movie back and like it holds up so well. Like
Mhm.
it looks like the bus is like squeezing between two other buses and like on the highway, you know? So neat. And I just love like I don't know, they do a good job in this movie and in every movie, right? They have to like reintroduce you to the world of magic. And this is such a
Mhm.
cool way to do it. Like you just jump in and there's Stan Shunpike and the driver Ern and everybody's like yelling and crazy and then you get all these like witches and wizards just like sleeping on the bus as if like literally as
Nothing's
if this isn't
happening.
happening, right? Like it just it shows you the kooky world that is the witches and wizards.
Yeah. Did Harry call the bus or did it just appear?
It just appeared.
Okay.
Yeah, it picks
Like,
up
I
like
missed something here.
stranded witches and wizards. So it's like just magical that it like knew Harry was stranded.
And that's from the
Mhm.
book.
Mhm.
That's okay.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, they did that pretty well, I think. What's next? We already talked a little bit about it, but Quidditch in this scene or in this movie is like way cooler, more fast paced. They did it in a storm, which is wild. So
Again, the
love.
complete and total disregard for the safety of anyone involved. Like
Oh
the
yeah,
spectators, like everyone's just out there in it. And the Dementors are running wild, rogue. Like no one is controlling them.
yep, yep. Wouldn't be the magical world if they didn't have just like absolute controlled chaos all the time. Hmm. And then the last one I want to mention is Hagrid's hut and like the pumpkin patch area, because they actually filmed. They filmed in like Glencoe, Scotland, to get
Mhm.
that like backdrop, which I think is beautiful.
Mhm. Yeah. I read too. So like whenever they're in Hagrid's hut, there's like bats in there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you noticed the bats that are flying around,
No.
but they're real bats.
What?
And if you could guess, bats are difficult to train.
Yeah,
And so they were difficult also to film with, but they pretty much would just like set food like around in different places and the bats would fly from place to place to get the food.
that's so cool.
Yeah.
One thing I don't think we've like talked enough about Hagrid's hut as like a concept
Mhm.
because like so Robbie Coltrane is a big guy, but he's only like 6 foot something tall. And
Mhm.
so they do a lot of cool things in Hagrid's hut to kind of give the appearance that like Hagrid is bigger than he seems. So
Mhm.
they give him like really big, like oversized furniture and everybody else like small, normal size furniture. And
Mhm.
just like they have to do a lot of interesting things to like make Hagrid look humongous.
Like emphasize.
Yeah. Yeah.
Also, I will point out Hagrid's hut is like that purse, the magic purse that Hermione has that just like so much stuff. You can just fit like a whole world in there pretty much. It's like
Mm-hmm.
that. It's tiny from the outside. You walk in and there's like all this space. But also there's not a bed. Like he doesn't have a bedroom. It's literally just like the kitchen common space. Like what is
Yeah.
this?
Yeah. I
Completely
love Hagrid's
impractical.
hut. And I just love that they like it gets so much screen time because it is such a big part of the books, like that Harry, Ron, and Hermione like go down and hang out in Hagrid's hut.
It's like their
So
safe space.
no.
Love that.
Okay. Are you ready to get into the 7 key plot points of the movie?
7 is a magic number.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Number 1. Back at the Dursleys for the summer, Vernon's sister Marge provokes Harry, insulting his mother and father
Oh.
until the magic in Harry bubbles over and he unintentionally blows up Aunt Marge like a balloon.
She got what she deserved. That lady
She-
had it coming.
yes, she did.
She had
Evil.
it coming.
She was talking so much smack about
Who
Harry's
does that?
parents.
Who does that? Who stands in front of a child whose parents are dead and says like, "Oh, the father was a drunk." Like, why would you ever say that?
I
She
don't know. Really
she got
awful
what was
people.
coming to her. She deserved it. I do not feel bad for her at all. I would have let her float
Mm-mm.
away too.
Me too. Yeah, I think that that whole scene is very well done
Mhm.
and I think it's hilarious. And I also read that Dudley has no speaking parts in this movie.
Okay, Dudley. Dudley, the actor, apparently he was almost recast because the actor lost a bunch of weight, and so
Oh,
they ended up having to put him in a fat suit. Yeah.
Yeah, well, he's supposed to be I just
Pudgy.
literally like earlier today started rereading this book on um audiobook,
Uh-huh.
and they describe in this scene Dudley as having 5 chins. So the way that J.K. Rowling writes is hilarious. She is like she gives no fucks. She just like calls people out. So like she describes like Uncle Vernon as like a walrus. Like it is
The
crazy.
Dursleys deserve it, though. They so deserve it. They're
Yeah, they
awful.
do. They do. Yep. And then so Harry ends up with the Minister of Magic in Diagon Alley, and he's all like, "It's all good, sir. Like you blowing up your
You had
aunt, no big
nothing to
deal.
worry about.
No big deal." So
So political. So political.
hate fudge so much. Okay. All right. Number 2. Lupin teaches Harry how to fight Dementors. So the Dementors seem to affect Harry more than the others at the castle. So
Mhm.
Harry asks Lupin to teach him to defend himself against them. Lupin teaches Harry how to cast a Patronus charm, magic far beyond that of a third year at Hogwarts. So let's start by talking about like the moments within the film that are really cool when Dementors are affecting Harry in general.
Mhm.
So the first one is the scene on the train when we are like
Yeah.
first introduced to the Dementors, and one of them comes into their compartment and like starts literally acting like he's going to suck
Attacks
out
Harry.
Harry's soul on the
Yeah,
train.
for no reason. Um, so I thought the use of ice was very effective because
Mhm.
then like later in the movie when the Dementors are coming around and stuff starts icing over, like you know it's about to happen. It
Yeah.
also looked really cool. Like
Yeah.
Ron's hand is like on the window and it's like iced around his hand, and I just thought it was really cool. Something I read about that specifically. So I don't think in the books ice was associated with the Dementors. Maybe it was.
I think you
Um,
feel a chill. I think that's definitely described.
okay. So Cuarón, the director, is Mexican and he has a very thick accent. And the first
Mhm.
time he told the effects team that he wanted everything to turn into ice, they heard eyes and they made a storyboard where eyes are like all these different sized eyes are falling from the sky. And so they like show up with this storyboard and he's like horrified. He's like, "What is that?" He's like, "I said ice, not eyes."
Wait, that's
I just thought that was like
hilarious.
hilarious. Like, of course. And they like didn't question it. They're like, "Yep, eyes. That makes total sense."
Oh my gosh. I was watching so many videos of Alfonso Cuarón in like the making of this movie, and one
Mhm.
of the ones that I saw is like the very first scene where Harry is like saying Lumos under the covers,
Mhm.
which first of all, mistake. He would get immediately expelled from school because you can't like use magic outside of school. But that scene, there was like this moment when Alfonso like went up to Dan and was like trying to tell him something, and he like held onto his foot like in the like I guess he's like sitting like his feet are up,
Mhm.
and Dan is like, you might not want to touch that, and he was like, ooh, like his foot was like sweaty or something.
Gross.
I don't know. Yeah, very gross.
Guess they all
Um,
kind of had to get comfy with each other. They spent a lot of time together.
yeah, for sure. We already talked about the Quidditch moment with the
Mhm.
Dementors, but then we
Yeah.
also get the moment with the Boggart in
Mhm.
the Defense Against the Dark Arts class.
Alan Rickman in women's clothing is that he was fabulous. The like
Oh yeah,
looking around. It like and like the hat had a feather on it and the feather would like twitch when he moved. I was like, this is literally hilarious. Like, it's like such a serious scene, and then that's going on. Like, and he
Mhm.
doesn't stop too. Like, the camera is like not focused on him. It's like the kid. It's like looking at the kids, and he's still going. Like, still like looking around, and like, oh my god, I
Alan
love
Rickman
it.
is a treasure, just a treasure to have on this cast, and he's so good in every movie, and that is a gem of a moment. Ugh. Also, the like Jack in the Box thing, which is supposed to be the snake turned funny, is like
Mm-hmm.
low key like more scary
Creepy.
than the
Yes.
snake to me.
Yes. I agree with
Yeah.
that.
Yep. And then Lupin steps in front of Harry because he thinks that the Bogart is going to turn into Voldemort. And then it
Mm-hmm.
turns into the full
The
moon,
moon.
which is foreshadowing to Lupin.
Mm-hmm.
Elizabeth, when you watched this movie for the first time, did you pick up on the fact that Lupin was a werewolf? Because I feel like they make it like really obvious in the film. And maybe that's just because I've seen this movie like 20 times, but
I don't think so. Um,
okay.
I knew he was. Okay, here's a little backstory on me. I studied French for like 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
And Lupin is a wolf in French. So Professor Lupin
Oh,
is Professor Wolf. So I was like, okay, like something. But I think I thought he was the black dog. Like, if I'm
yeah.
being honest.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Um,
That's confusing.
mhm. But yeah, I think that answered your question.
Oh. So you kind of had like an inkling that something was up, but kind
Yeah,
of
I don't think
yeah.
the full moon with the boggart or whatever it's called, I don't think that like I don't think I questioned that at all. I think I was kind of like, what the hell? Like, why did it turn into a
Yeah.
night sky?
Yeah. Yeah, very that but that's like the first bit that you get that like, oh, like if you're
Mhm.
really paying attention, you're like, "Oh, there's a little moment."
Mhm.
So, Lupin is one of, if not like my favorite character in this series. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that like him and Harry have this like really unique relationship that's like almost parental. Like Lupin acts like his father in a way. And a lot of it is cut from the movies, from subsequent movies. But we do get a decent amount of it in this movie because this is the first time that we get Lupin. And I just love the moments that we get with him, um,
Mhm.
with David Thewlis, and like the moment when he tells Harry like your mother was there for me when like nobody else was, and like you look just like your father. And I just like love how they get so much one-on-one time in this movie.
Mhm. Yeah, it is very cute. And it's too bad that Harry didn't get to have Lupin in his life longer because he really does seem like an amazing person. And if I'm being completely honest, seems like he's probably one of the best teachers that Hogwarts has.
Yeah.
He's so patient, he's very knowledgeable, um, and he just like like you can tell he cares. Like no matter what else is going on with him, he was like always worried about the students first. And
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of a running joke that like in the series up until this point, like the student for at least for Harry's class, like the students have had shit defense against the dark arts teachers, like arguably like
mhm,
the most important subject in school. And it is until like Lupin that they actually get like a decent teacher to teach them
mhm.
anything in this class.
LOL.
Yeah. But love Lupin and love the moments of like him working with Harry and picking memories. And actually, I read that the memory that Harry used to conjure the Patronus with Lupin, they actually changed that from the memory that was used in the book,
Hmm.
which I thought was interesting because I really liked the memory that they changed it to. So,
Courtney.
I
who's
know.
always upset that movies deviate from the book,
I know. Well,
has selected
yeah, I know. Crazy to say, but it's true. I know. Okay. Point number 3. Messrs. Mooney, Wormtail, Padfoot, and Prongs left their incredible Marauders map at Hogwarts to end up in the hands of none other than Fred and George Weasley. But Fred and George pass this map on to Harry, the map that can see what everyone is doing inside the castle at all times, and also give Harry access to the 7 secret passageways within.
I love how when this gets handed down to Harry, he's like, "Where'd you get this?" And they're like, "We snatched it from Filch's office, of course." Like,
Yeah. Like, Mrs.
okay.
Filch's office, of course. Where else? When they were in detention in Filch's office. Also, like,
Naturally.
how did the Marauders just, like, leave this map, like, at the school? I guess Filch confiscated it from them. That's, like, the story.
If I had to guess, Dumbledore probably confiscated it and it ended up with Filch because Filch is kind of like the keeper of the 4th floor, right?
I guess.
So it's probably
I
just
think
in there with the other stuff.
no, if I had to guess, the way that it was intended is my guess would be that Filch nicked it from the Marauders, like, when they were in school, and they
And
were
couldn't
just
figure out
like,
what it was.
Whatever, we're about to graduate, just leave it, like
What's so wild is that map is incredibly dangerous in the wrong hands. Like,
yes.
can you imagine like if like Voldemort got a hold of it and figured out how to use it? Like,
Yeah, absolutely crazy. And Lupin's words,
insane.
did you ever consider that that map in the hands of Sirius Black is a map to you?
Mm.
The
Okay, so wait,
arts.
we need to do like a quick because the Marauders are not explained in this movie. And I did do a
No.
little bit of research. I also so there's another movie podcast out there called Raiders of the Lost Podcast, and they recently did an episode where they're explaining a fanfic that they wrote about the Marauders. And that was like extremely enlightening for me because I didn't know anything about them. They're never
Mhm.
brought up in the movies ever.
Never.
Um so Mooney, Wormtail, Padfoot, and Prongs are the Marauders. And
Yep.
those are their well, Mooney is Lupin and he's the werewolf, but the rest of them are animagi. And it like describes their characters that they turn into, right?
Yep. Yeah. Yep.
Which
And they oh,
that would
go
have been
ahead.
such a great point for them to include in the movie. Like it would have
I
made a whole bunch of things make sense.
couldn't agree more. It's such a shame that they dropped it. It's one of the coolest parts of the movies or of the
Mhm.
books, and it's so, like, I don't know, they drop so much backstory from the movies, and they have
Mhm.
to, right? Like, they can't keep everything in. But this is one where it's just so sad because it's, like, the coolest characters, and it explains so much about not only, like, Lupin and Sirius and Pettigrew and James, but about, like, Snape and Harry's relationship and why Snape hates Harry so much
Mhm.
because of the Marauders, and but also why he cares for Harry because of Lily. And so it's just, like, so sad not to see it in the movie.
Mhm.
But yeah, you have all of that exactly right. So Lupin was a werewolf, and when his friends discovered it, they figured out how to make themselves unregistered animagi in order to, like, keep up with him in the night.
That's so nice of them.
I
Like make
know.
sure that he didn't do anything bad.
Yeah, and it's, like, kind of a big deal because nobody knows that they're animagi, like, not even Dumbledore. So, like, Dumbledore doesn't know that Sirius and Peter Pettigrew are animagi, and it becomes, like, a big deal because Lupin knows, but Lupin doesn't tell Dumbledore that Sirius is an animagi, and so that's why Snape is, like, telling Dumbledore, like, Lupin is not to be trusted because, like, he clearly Like, I think Snape knows that
More.
Lupin knows more of what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wow.
I know. How cool would that
Wild.
plot have been?
Love that. Literally could have been an entire movie on its own.
Well,
Like it could have been
maybe
like a 3.5 movie or two
I
and a
would
half.
recommend that everybody go listen to James and Anthony's The Marauders episode,
Mm-hmm.
the Raiders of the Lost
Yeah,
podcast.
we'll
And
link it in the show notes.
yeah, it's really fun. And I hope that Warner Brothers picks it up and makes it into a show because I would 100% watch that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And then one other thing about the map is that Harry sees Pettigrew in the map and kind of follows them through the castle. And then we get this like really fun scene with him and Snape where Snape is like, "What is that?" He's like, just a spare bit of parchment." Reveal your secrets.
It just insults him.
Messrs. Mooney, Wormtail, Padfoot, and Prongs recommend that Professor Snape gets his abnormally large nose out of other people's business.
Abnormally large. I would be, if I was Snape, I would have been offended.
Like watching that scene back, it's like it makes you think that Harry's making this up and not like actually reading it from the paper.
The way he says it.
Yeah, he like looks up and looks Snape in the eyes. Gets his abnormally large nose out of other people's business.
And then Lupin's like, this looks like a parchment that's been enchanted to just insult anyone that's trying to read it.
A Zonko's product, potentially. Okay. Number 4. After Hermione storms out of divination because she thinks Trelawney and her subject is phony, Harry returns to find Professor Trelawney in a sort of trance. She delivers what certainly feels like an actual prophecy to Harry.
Mm.
And I'm going to read the prophecy.
Ooh.
I don't know if I'm going to
Are you
read it
gonna
in the
do the
Trelawney
voice?
He will return tonight. Tonight, he who betrayed his friends, whose heart rots with murder, shall break free. Innocent blood shall be spilt, and servant and master shall be reunited once more.
And then she's like, ah, 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 hello, Harry.
Have I said something?
And he's like,
Emma Thompson. Emma Thompson.
yeah.
Do you know who that is, Elizabeth?
No.
She's an incredible British actress. And just for like reference of who she plays the wife of Alan Rickman in Love Actually, the like blonde-haired, short-haired lady.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Oh.
like to see her in this role is just so different, but she's incredible.
Yeah. So I think divination would probably be my favorite class. It seems like it's
Of
just like very
course.
fun and kind of like artsy fartsy. And
Yeah.
it's like go with the flow. Like, I don't know, what are the tea leaves speaking to you today? Like, I don't know. It just
Mhm.
seems very fun. I like divination and I like her, except I think I would be scared to ever interact with her had the whole prophecy scene happened in front of me. I never would have talked to her. I would have dropped the class. Like, I'm done with
So
this. I can't.
yeah, 100% same. I would have looked exactly like Harry, been like speechless. But to your point about liking divination, so they did cut that from the movies. There was like a whole group of students, so like the Patil sisters and Lavender, and
Mhm.
they were like obsessed with divination. And they like loved Professor Trelawney and they like go hang out up in her attic and like read the tea leaves with her and stuff. I feel like it's like analogous to like star signs and like astrology, like in well, it's not though, because there actually is a class called astrology in or astronomy, something like that. Like in the they cut that out for the most part from the books. I mean from the movies. But so what's interesting is that they did change the prophecy too. The prophecy is
What?
different in the book.
Why would they
It's
do
like a
that?
bit
I just like don't understand. Like, why would they change it?
it's just like a bit longer, like a little bit, I guess. And
Mm.
I yeah, I don't know. I don't know why they changed it. Um but it's effective. I thought that scene was like creepy as hell, and I think that's exactly how it was supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
Um Also, they do a good job of like making Treylani look like for the most part a fraud, and then like when
She
she
looks
does
crazy.
yeah, yeah.
She looks like
And
a
then when
crazy
she
person.
yeah, cuz she is. And then when she gives like the actual prophecy, like
You're like, oh
Harry's
shit.
like, "Whoa." And
This is
there's
real.
a there's a joke that's cut out of the movie, but it's in the book where at the very end when Harry's like talking to Dumbledore, he tells him like, "Hey, like Trelawney gave me this prophecy," and Dumbledore makes a joke that's like, "That's the second like real prophecy that Professor Trelawney has ever made. I should give her a pay raise for
A
giving an
second?
actual prophecy."
A pay raise?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Mhm. Um. Okay. Number 5. Scabbers turns out to be Peter Pettigrew. So Ron is dragged into the Whomping Willow by the Grim, the large black dog, aka Sirius. When Harry and Hermione follow, they're in for a world of discovery. The black dog is actually Sirius Black. Lupin is a werewolf, and Peter Pettigrew has been posing as Ron's rat Scabbers for the last 12 years.
Listen, nobody liked Scabbers to begin with.
No.
And now Scabbers is like on the most wanted list.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that is like these reveals are like my favorite thing. Really, my favorite thing about this scene is just the incredible acting that we get. So it's like the
Mhm.
first big scene in the movies where we get a bunch of like adult actors leading the way. So we have um Lupin, Sirius, Pettigrew, and Snape all here together,
All in
and
one scene.
yeah, and Gary Oldman literally so good. Alan Rickman, so good. Like you can just feel like the angst from when they were
The
all
tension.
teenagers together and like
Yeah.
now they're adults and
And
like
the hatred that
yes.
Lupin and Sirius have for Peter Pettigrew is like so evident. Like
Yeah.
they just hate him so, so much. And there's a scene, we didn't talk about it, but when Harry thinks that Sirius portrayed his parents, and he's like,
Yeah.
he was their friend and he
Mhm.
betrayed them. And then, like, it was one of their friends that betrayed them, but it wasn't Sirius. It was this guy. And Harry sees Sirius and Lupin both feeling the same way that he was feeling, which is, I'm sure, very validating.
Yeah. Yeah. I like when Sirius is like so Peter's like, "What would you have done?" And Sirius is like, "I would have died. I would have died rather than betray my friend." You can just
Aw.
I know. It's so sad. And it's so cool to see also in this part like some real like intense magic starting to happen. So like
Mhm.
this is where Harry does his first like infamous Expelliarmus and he disarms Professor Snape.
And Hermione's like, you just whatever to a teacher.
You just attacked a teacher, Harry.
And Harry's like, we'll deal with that later.
Yeah, so love this scene. Even like the like Peter Pettigrew, like him, like when he becomes like a person again, and he's like, like acting like a
It looks
rat.
like a rat. If you had been a rat for 12 years, are you kidding?
Yeah,
That's
he looks
insane.
creepy as hell. I think they did like a really good job casting him, but every time I see him, I'm like, how were James and Sirius and Lupin like friends with this loser? Like he is
Well, wasn't he like not actually their friend? He was like obsessed with them. And so, like, all right, you can be in the group.
yeah, he was like a follower, really.
Yeah.
But like at the same time, like he was one of the Marauders. Like he made it on the map, so like he was their friend.
And he was trusted with the secret location of James and Lily.
Yes, he was. Ugh, hate him.
Wrongfully so.
Yeah. And then one of like the most important parts of this scene is that Harry convinces Lupin and Sirius not to kill Peter Pettigrew because that comes back later. So
Stupidly.
it's important that happens, and I'm glad that they made sure to include that in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And because, well, okay, let's go on to the next one. Sorry.
Well,
I'm getting ahead
one
of
last
myself.
thing is like all this takes place in the Shrieking Shack, which
Yeah.
I love that we get the Shrieking Shack and that like during the scene it's like moving, you know?
Moving.
Yeah, it's cool.
Being held together by magic itself.
Mhm.
I love that we finally, in this moment, like this scene, you figure out what the Whomping Willow is for
Yes.
and why it was put there.
Because it's at this point been in so much of the series. Like in the last book it was really important, and in this book it was
Mm-hmm.
important, in this
Yep.
movie. How do you feel about the art of the Whomping Willow, because they changed it for this movie like a little bit?
Oh, I didn't even notice. I didn't
Okay,
notice
that's
that they
good.
changed it.
Yeah, I mean, they just made it like some of the branches like longer, but I think they did a good job of like keeping some of them, those like giant bulb things that like come down, so it
Yeah.
still looked sort of the same.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, some
Yeah.
people like get really angry that they changed it, but I'm like,
I didn't even notice. I
yeah,
still
get
knew it
over
was the Whomping
yourselves.
Willow.
Yeah. Okay, number 6, the full moon. The group exits the Whomping Willow, planning to take Pettigrew to the Dementors. But there's a hitch in their plan. Tonight happens to be a full moon, and Professor Lupin has forgotten to take his potion. Lupin transforms into a werewolf, and Pettigrew manages to escape.
Fucking Pettigrew.
We hate him
And
so
because
much.
he gets away, that he's going to come back. Like, you just know that he's going to have something to do with the rest of the story.
Yeah, well, I mean, you got the prophecy from Trelawney. Servant gonna be reunited with Master. Wonder what's gonna happen in the next movie.
I'm literally rolling my eyes. For those of you listening and not watching, my eyes rolled like 10 times just then.
So in this scene, we get a few things. So before all like the craziness goes down, we get Harry chatting with Sirius, which is, we talked a lot about Lupin, but another father figure that's introduced in this movie is Sirius. And we get them chatting, and Sirius telling Harry, like, you could live with me. We could live in like the countryside. I know.
And he was so happy.
I know. Like and you could tell like immediately too. Like they're falling into their godfather, godson roles, right? Like they just got along like the same. And that's like a really big thread of the books as well, is that Sirius like kind of thinks of Harry as James, and him and Mrs. Weasley like get into it because she's like, he's not James, like he's Harry. And so that's like the start of like immediately, like you can tell not only does Harry have his like father figure, but Sirius like has his friend again.
Aww.
I know. Yeah. Makes what happens next really sad. So Lupin turns into a werewolf. Pettigrew escapes. Snape actually comes in and protects the trio.
How cute was that? Him just like
I
standing in front,
know.
like not even thinking about it.
I know. I know.
Snape, you're showing your sweet side.
I know. I could see as like, so we'll check in with Holly, but like, I wonder what she is thinking, like, while she's watching this scene, right? Because, like, for the first movie, like, you're convinced that, like, Snape is trying to steal the stone. And
Yeah.
then, like, you continue to see him, like, hating Harry.
Even in
But,
the
like,
second movie. Even in the second movie, you are
yeah.
convinced he is in some way related.
And in this movie, he is like, he hates Harry and he hates Lupin and he's like so mean, and then he protects them. And so I feel like as
Wait, he's
somebody
also
like,
mean to Hermione.
Yes! He's
Yes!
so mean. He's called her an insufferable know-it-all.
And he takes 5 points from Gryffindor.
Oh, shit.
Sorry, I knew exactly where I was gonna plug that.
Ugh. Fine. I better get
Moving
points
on.
for my impersonations.
You've gotten lots of points.
Oh, bless you. We gotta take 5 points from Hufflepuff because we didn't talk about it, but the Quidditch scene, we get a seeker that's supposed to be Cedric Diggory. That's not the real Cedric Diggory.
He just gets replaced, okay? He gets replaced with a much better actor, if you ask me.
100%. We love our Pats.
Cannot wait for the Robert Pattinson love train to begin.
Oh my
Cannot
God.
wait.
Next episode, people get excited. So, okay. I don't think there's much else to talk
I
about.
interrupted you. You said Snape steps in to protect the children and then...
Yeah, and that's pretty much it. Like, Harry follows...
Well, Sirius and Lupin have a fight.
Oh, yeah, they do have a fight in their
really bad
animal
fight.
form.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I liked the backdrop, like, where they were. It was cool.
It looked spooky.
And then you see...
like, almost like the Thriller music video. Like, I was expecting them to, like...
Yeah, I think this movie does a good job of, like, being spooky and scary and dramatic, but also, like, not being too spooky and scary and dramatic.
It's like,
and like
it's like the obvious. Like, they go very obvious with it so that it's, like, it's still a kid's movie, you know?
Yeah. But it's not, like, cheesy. Like, I love this movie as an adult, so yeah. And then I think the last bit of this scene is when Harry and Sirius go down to the lake, and Sirius is about to get, like, kissed.
He's
by
getting
the
the
Dementors.
kiss.
Yeah. Yeah, that is, like, an interesting choice of, like, you can see his soul coming out, but it's effective.
I wouldn't expect that to be what a soul looks like, but I think they do portray the soul like that in subsequent movies as well.
Mm-hmm.
So they picked it and they ran with it. So
yeah, I liked it. I liked it. Okay, and number 7. With Dumbledore's recommendation, Harry and Hermione turn Hermione's time turner 3 turns.
3 times.
Going back in time to the start of the night. They head out on a wild journey to somehow save both Buckbeak from his death and Sirius from the Dementor's kiss.
Why didn't they also trap Peter Pettigrew? Because they could have.
So they talk about that. Because I don't think they could have. Like, he becomes his rat form and, like, scurries away into the brush. Like, I don't think there was any way for them to find him. The only way remember, because Harry says, like, well, why don't we go into the hut now and just, like, grab Scabbers? And there's, like, no way to do that without, like, really messing with time.
Horrible things happen to wizards that meddle with time, Harry.
Yeah. And I think the only other time they could have done it is, like, in the Whomping Willow. Because remember, like, Ron has him there, but then he bites him and escapes. And then Ron follows him to the Whomping Willow. And then Sirius, like, takes him in there. So the only way that they could have gone and gotten Peter Pettigrew is if they had, like, gone and interrupted that part as well. Yeah. But we do get Buckbeak saved. So we get the scene where Harry and Hermione, like, step in and take Buckbeak. And my favorite part, there's a lot of this scene, like, with Hermione, like, throwing the shells in the hut and stuff. But my favorite part is when, like, Dumbledore and the minister, like, come out of the hut, and Dumbledore's like, look over there, like, and, like, is trying to distract them.
How does Dumbledore know what's going on?
I don't know.
Like, how does he know?
Dumbledore is so smart. I don't know.
He's like the all-knowing being. I have so many questions about Dumbledore that are unanswered.
I love the music in this scene too, It like
Mhm.
really gets you like on edge the whole time. You're like,
And the
girl,
crows.
get Buckbeak. I'm like, Buckbeak, come on. These people are trying to
Like, "Come on,
save
good
you.
Buckbeak." They, like, got the ferrets and they're like, "Come on."
I got you a nice juicy dead ferret.
Uh,
And then Harry produces a stag as his Patronus and saves Sirius and
mhm.
himself.
So I was under the assumption that the um memory he used to create that Patronus was the memory of Sirius telling him that they were going to live together.
Mm, maybe.
Is that what you assumed?
It could be. He says that like the reason he could do it is because he knew he'd already done it.
He knew he'd already done it. So he
Yeah.
maybe used like that memory then. That's so neat.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know how he
Mm.
did it, but according to Dumbledore, only a really powerful wizard could have conjured it.
Foreshadowing.
Yeah, he becomes like kind of famous for this Patronus in later movies. So
I
for
love
this
how all
particular
their
one,
Patronuses have little animals.
I
So
know.
cute.
It's really cute. Yeah.
Oh, fun fact about the little Patronus animals. If you're into Funko Pops, Funko created an entire line of the Patronus animals that you
Did
can
they really?
get and have. Yeah, they did.
That's cool.
Hmm.
Well, I'm just have my one Funko Pop now. It's up there. It's my Gryffindor lion.
Mine's back here. I have 3.
They're
Got them
growing.
all at the same time. um, yeah.
So next in the film is just Harry and Hermione. They save Sirius from the
Hmm.
tower where he's
With
like
Buckbeak.
housed up in the castle. Yeah, they use Buckbeak.
Hmm.
And
I wrote
Sirius
here
goes
that
off with
he
Buckbeak.
escapes to who knows where.
Yeah. Yeah, who knows where.
And then Harry also has to say goodbye to Lupin. He loses 2 really special people,
I know.
which
I
is really
know.
sad.
But he stays in contact with him at least. They're just like gone for the time being, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. I just I love Gary Oldman. I think he was cast so incredibly well as Sirius.
Mhm.
And I even like the way that Alfonso Cuarón like made him look. Like he gave him all these like tattoos. Like that wasn't in the books. But I think it's
So,
pretty effective.
when he showed up to set for the first time, Tom Felton thought he was, like, one of the custodians at the studio.
Oh my god. That's crazy. And he's just like only one of the like most incredible actors of his time.
Yeah. But they had him looking so, like, mundane.
Raggedy. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, raggedy, literally raggedy. They had his
Yes,
hair like
yes.
unkempt. So,
Like, matted.
yep.
Ugh.
Um, so yeah. And then the last shot of the film is a freeze frame of
I loved
Harry.
it. I thought it was so fun. He, like, gets his new broomstick and everyone's like, "Yeah!" And he, like, jumps on the broom and he's, like, happy as can be, like, smiling ear to ear. That's, like, the last thing you see going into the next movie.
Yeah, it's cute. It's better. It's a better end, I think, than the last movie, which ended with like hugging Hagrid. Um,
I loved both of those endings. I think they've ended all 3 of the movies so far really well.
I mean, yeah, they have, but so this one in particular, it kind of gets me going a little bit because so there's 2 major things that they changed with this movie, and
Mhm.
not what the Marauders we already talked about. They like omitted that,
Mhm.
but the other one is this timeline of this quit of the broom because he gets the firebolt. And
Mhm.
in the books, Sirius gives Harry the firebolt like halfway through the school year because the Nimbus 2000 breaks in the Whomping Willow. And so
Mhm.
Harry's without a broom for a while. And it's like a big deal because the broom, like nobody knows who the broom comes from. So the school confiscates it and they don't let him have it for like weeks until they like can check it
In case
out
it
and like
in case it could be
make sure,
dangerous.
yeah, make sure
Yeah.
it doesn't have any like dark magic in it. And then they give him the firebolt and then he uses it for the Quidditch season instead of like getting it at the end of the school year from Sirius. But it's fine. Like it's cute how they made it like very obviously from Sirius, and now we get this like moment, and it's like the
Mhm.
bond. I don't know. It's cute, but
It is very cute. I think
I
it's
remember
adorable.
the first time I watched this movie in theaters, being like, "What? That's wrong. Like, why did they do that?"
I can see a younger version of Courtney sitting in her seat and being like, "Is anyone else seeing this? They have committed a
Concerned,
cardinal sin." Just like Hermione.
concerned.
Just like Hermione.
Yeah, literally exactly like Hermione. My family used to call me Hermione because I was like about these books. I would be like, "Well, actually, it was like this in the book." So, yeah.
Love it.
Okay. Well, that concludes our discussion. Liz, is there anything that we missed talking about?
I don't think so. Well, okay. One of my favorite scenes, we didn't talk about it
Okay.
because it's like sort of irrelevant, but when Harry's like sitting up at night, like analyzing the Marauders map and just like
Mhm.
looking at who's in the castle and whatever, and then Ron like wakes up from a nightmare talking about the spiders, and Harry's like, "Tell those spiders, Ron." And he's like, "Yeah, yeah," and like rolls over. I just thought it was so
Yeah.
cute. I was like,
I think
"Oh, Ron."
I of course it's a Ron moment that you love, but I agree. And I think they did a really good job of like interjecting like little comedic moments like that. Like
Mhm.
that's why I love this movie because I think it's cute and it's emotional and it's funny and it's dramatic and it's like all the things that it really should be.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Very cute.
Okay. Um, do you have a favorite piece of magic from this film, Elizabeth?
Yes.
Ooh.
Obviously, it has to be the Marauders map.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Also, just like everything involving like divination. I don't even know if that's magic or not, but
Yeah,
I
it's all
loved all
magic.
of that.
It's all magic. I
What
think
about
mine
you?
is probably the Patronus, just because that's such an iconic Harry thing. So,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, do you have a favorite magical creature in this film?
Yes. The Dementors are my favorite magical creature from this movie. I think mostly
Really?
because we don't really know much about them, but they're like incredibly fascinating. Just like so intriguing.
Yeah, they are fascinating and dark, and there's a lot more to come with the Dementors.
Stay tuned.
Mine is probably Buckbeak for sure. But one that doesn't get mentioned in the film that I'm just now thinking of is so Hagrid becomes the Care of Magical Creatures teacher in this movie.
Mhm. Yeah.
And after the Buckbeak incident, he makes like Care of Magical Creatures like really boring because he doesn't want to get in trouble again. So he makes them take care of these animals called blast-ended scroots, which are like these like huge like slug things that like blast off on one end and like shoot across the ground, and like the students have to like take care of them, and they're like potatoes and they like grow really big. But
I
that's
think
okay, they
they
were cut
talk
out.
about them.
They
Like
might.
that maybe in like a later movie. I can't remember. I feel like I've heard that before. Maybe I've heard you talk about it. I don't know.
Maybe. They're kind of a silly concept, so it's fine that they cut them, but okay, and then your favorite character in this film, and I bet I can guess who it is.
It's Lupin. I don't care if he's a
Oh,
werewolf. I love him anyways.
you're gonna say Ron. I love
Oh
Lupin
no.
too.
Ron takes a back seat in this movie, which is okay. He comes back in the next one.
Yeah, he can't always be the hot commodity in every movie. I like when Dumbledore like pats him on the leg in the
Yeah.
hospital wing.
And he's like wincing.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Lupin is my favorite character also. I love him. I think Sirius is a close second.
Mm.
Okay. That's it. So I think it's time to rate the movie. And as
Woo!
always, we rate the movies in Letterboxd 0 to 5 stars. Liz, you're first.
I gave this one 4 stars.
Okay.
Still a great movie. Just I don't know what it was about it. I like had to watch it multiple times and like it's just like not as memorable to me. I don't know why, but
It's
4.
fine.
Still like obviously a great movie. 4 stars is a great movie, but it's not as good as the second one.
Yeah, I agree. So this is my favorite Harry Potter movie,
Mhm.
by far. And I think the reason is because it has the most rewatchability to me. Like I could watch this movie like at all times. And
Mhm.
the one complaint I have about this movie is that they omit the Marauders from the story. And so that's really,
Mhm.
really sad. But I still love this movie. And I just think it's like one of the best movies ever. So I give it a 5-star.
I'm not
No,
surprised.
no, no.
Hey B Critics, it's Holly, and I'm back with another Harry Potter review. So this week, I watched along Liz and Court to watch Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, and I have some thoughts. So just like last time, I'm going to quickly run through my 7 key takeaways, and then I will give y'all my review of this movie at the end. So my first thought was that this movie was never ending. Every time that I thought like we'd resolved the conflict, it was over, they just extended it and it kept going, which led for a lot of like twists and turns and things I wasn't expecting. And I feel like I have not read the books, but I feel like this was probably because they kept the books really true to the movie. You guys can tell me if I'm wrong, but I kind of liked it because like nowadays I feel like most movies like, I don't know, they like cut things out that are crucial from books, and I liked that it seemed like they probably kept it true to the story, so I thought that was cool. Although it did like the whole time I was like, okay, is it over now? But it was good. But I was like, is it over now? Okay, second, so much was going on. There were so many new magical creatures, there were new characters, there was just so many things happening that I feel like is one of the magical parts of the whole Harry Potter wizarding world, is that you could watch this movie 10 times and every time you watch it, you would see something new. I don't know if y'all feel that same way, but the whole time I was like, just like I had to keep my eyes on the screen because there were so many things happening and so many new characters and things that if I wasn't paying attention, I would miss. And I think that's something that makes this series so special and one of the reasons why like people love it. 3, we kind of talked about this in the first episode. Liz kind of brought up that they had to shoot the movies like back to back to back because the kids were growing and they grow so fast. And I can tell already in this third movie, like the kids look so much older already. And so I really I noticed that and I was like, okay, now I'm kind of intrigued to watch the next couple of movies because I want to see how much they grow in just like a short amount of time. My first point was Hermione signing up for so many classes and having to like be at multiple classes at the same time was such a Hermione move. Like that is so, I was like, that's a Hermione move. Like wouldn't expect anything different out of her. But it also, and I feel like this is probably why, and it kind of like, I feel like we circle back at the end, but I felt like at the beginning, I missed Hermione. I felt like I didn't get a lot of her. She was missing. She wasn't around as much for like the first bit of the movie. And I guess it was because she was just so busy taking all her classes. But then at the end, when she comes in with the time necklace, I can't remember what it was called, and then kind of helps Harry like save the day, she redeems herself a little bit. And it makes sense to why she was missing. I felt like she was missing the first half of the movie. My fifth point is that Ron's rat being the bad guy threw me off. I definitely thought that the bad guy was going to be like that new professor guy who ends up being like friends with the prisoner, Cyrus, his friend. Sorry about the names, but I was like, in no world did I expect that rat that we gave Ron a hard time about in the very first movie. I never thought that rat would turn out to be a bad guy. And it makes me think back to our conversation in the first episode of the podcast when Liz and Court were like, when we talked about the rat, like, you guys knew. You knew about the rat. I didn't know about the rat. And I feel like y'all were probably giggling at me about it. My 6th point is I just want to do a Ron temp check. He's getting hotter. He's not like boiling yet, but Ron is growing on me. He still has his Ron things, but he's growing on me. He's growing on me for sure. So I wanted to say that Ron's getting better. He's getting better. And my last point goes off my last point in the other movie. Hermione and Ron definitely fall in love at some point. I am convinced. And one of the moments that kind of like made me really convinced of this was when in the movie when is it Buckbeak was gonna be beheaded, and they're all three hugging each other, and like Hermione's kind of leaning towards Ron and giving him more of a hug, and then Harry's just kind of like the third wheel. And you know what? I like this because in so many movies and so many series, it's always the main character who gets the girl. And I think it's fun and different that Hermione and Ron could fall in love. That Ron gets the girl. The side character gets the girl. I like that. I think that's cool. So overall, my rating for this one is similar to the last one. It is a 4 out of 5. It was a good movie. It kept me engaged. I could probably watch it 5 more times and get more out of it. And just overall, the Harry Potter world is growing on me. You guys know I'm a Harry Potter virgin, never watched these movies before. But even so, I kind of came into this not really interested in Harry Potter. I came in with the like attitude of I'm not gonna like it. And so we're at the 3rd movie now. It's starting to grow on me. The characters, I'm starting to get attached a little bit. So I'm excited to see where we go from here. So that's my rating, and I can't wait to get back to y'all next week with the next one. Bye.
Nope.
Okay, so now it's time for our write-ins, and
Okay.
we got some really good ones. So I'm gonna start with not the most positive, but it's from
Okay.
Popcorny Movies. She was on our last episode.
Oh yeah, she alluded to this.
Kirby. She said, "Style over substance is an Azkaban level offense when adapting a beloved book."
Yeah, it does have good style.
The next one I have is from Red View Films. And they said, it's essentially a werewolf movie, but the werewolf is Remus Lupin, so it's the best werewolf movie ever.
Ever. Aw.
Next is from the Movie Buff Dublin, and they said, my favorite Potter movie. The shift to a darker tone and vibe is my favorite thing about it.
Couldn't
Love
agree
that.
more.
And then our boy Dan Loves Film. He said, best one of the series.
Agree, sir. Agree with you, Dan.
Beloved.
Beloved.
And then, like always, we got to check in with the world.
Yeah.
So the world also loved this movie. The Letterboxd average is a 4.1 out of 5. The Tomato Meter critics gave it a 90%.
That's
the audience score.
High.
Yeah, and the audience score is 86, which is equally as high.
Wow.
IMDb gave it a 7.9, and 88% of Google users liked the movie.
I mean, it's a good movie.
Mm-hmm.
I think, like, outside of even the franchise. Like, it's a good movie. Like, just generally well liked. All right, so now we got to check back in on the B Critics Hogwarts House tournament, what the current standings are. So in the last place, I don't think they've really moved the needle this episode that much. Actually, they have. Is Ravenclaw with
I'll just preface this. I give anyone who's not represented by like someone speaking just automatically gets 25 points unless they lose points. So they can lose points and gain points, but they just automatically get 25. We never even mentioned Ravenclaw, so they just got their 25 points.
Okay, so they have 75 points.
Yeah.
Slytherin is coming in at number 3 with 90 points.
Mm-hmm.
In second place is Gryffindor with 130 points. Pretty respectable, if I do say so myself. And then somehow in the first place, yet again, with 150 points, is Hufflepuff.
But Gryffindor's closing the gap. Okay.
Okay.
They're closing the gap.
Okay.
As a reminder, you can earn points for your house by commenting on this episode on YouTube and telling us what house you're in.
Each comment will give 5 points to the commenter's house. If you try to cheat and comment more than one time, we will deduct points. The winning house will receive bragging rights for the whole year.
And we might make a special little cup. I don't know. We'll see.
We'll see.
We're still deciding on that.
Thinking about it.
All right, so it is time for us to say goodbye. Thank you so much for tuning in to our Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban episode. Be sure to leave us a rating or review, drop us a comment on our YouTube, and leave us an answer to our poll and Q&A section on Spotify.
You can find more information about the podcast and our whole podography on our website, bcritics.com, or you can find links to all of the things on our Linktree in the episode show notes.
Next week, we are discussing yet another Harry Potter movie, but this one is The Goblet of Fire. I think it's well loved. And we are having a super exciting return guest. His name is Lewis, and he does the movie of the day Instagram page. Y'all went crazy for our last episode with Lewis, so we hope you love this one just as much.
Yeah, I love recording with Lewis, so very excited for y'all to hear this one. Be sure to subscribe and follow so you don't miss it. You can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts.
All right, that is it for today. We will see y'all on the next one.
Bye, guys.